So this video was made by the same person that made the vampire video that we watched before, which I thought was a pretty good video. Obviously a work of fiction, but I mean, it's vampires and dragons, they're not real. But I like speculative, like science, like that documentary about dragons years ago, where, you know, they like found a frozen dragon and then they were showing like CGI renditions of dragons in their natural habitat. And so like, I think that stuff is fun. Like mockumentaries, I think they're cool. Hey Illusion, we are watching videos. We're about to start our last one for the evening before we play some games. But we're going to be watching A Natural History of Dragons, Draconology Part 1. We're probably going to do Part 2 next week, because I don't have a whole lot in the way of time. We're already more than 2 hours into the stream, so let's get going.
Throughout history, no creature, mythical or otherwise, has achieved such an iconic status as the mighty dragon.
Yeah.
Across nearly every culture and time, children and adults alike have told tales of fire-breathing monstrosities that terrorized the skies, and often of the noble warriors who set out to slay them. But what if these stories were more than just fantasy? How might a world populated by reptilian megafauna have been altered as a result of their existence? These are the questions posed by Vikas Rao, the author of a staggeringly detailed world-building project known simply as Draconology. Through numerous pieces of digital art and incredibly intricate descriptions, Draconology gives an account of the origin of dragons all the way through to the modern day. In this world, not only do dragons exist, but they live in a planet that has undergone a very different history, and as such differs from our own on a fundamental level. It is here, on this alternate Earth, that Draconology gives these legends new and vibrant life. So today, dear traveler, we'll embark on a journey to that alternate world, where we'll find the answer to a question that has long filled humanity with childlike wonder. What if dragons were real?
I wish they were.
It goes without saying that dragons have long been associated with fantasy. Images of knights in shining armor, mystical flying serpents, and fables of fiery destruction come to mind. But the reality, though less fantastical, is no less astounding. Modern dragons can be classified into 5 distinct clades: sea serpents, worms, wyverns, drakes, and draconia, which includes both griffins and true dragons. In this 2-part video, we'll explore just a few of these magnificent and dangerous creatures in detail, and we'll begin by diving into a location you may not expect to find a dragon: the deep ocean.
Really?
Though they are certainly a type of dragon, the sea serpents aren't closely related to the other members of its family tree. Because these creatures spend most of their time at great depths, the 11 species that make up this family are rarely seen and poorly understood. What we do know is that they are masters of the deep. Their laterally flattened tails provide powerful locomotion, and their limbs, modified into flippers, provide stabilization.
Yeah, Rain of Fire was a great movie.
One such serpent, the Nakaiwa, or lizard shark, can be found throughout the Pacific, Indian, and Southern Oceans, and at 6 to 7 meters in length, it's one of the smaller members of its clade. Its compact body, streamlined flippers, and rigid spine allow it to achieve speeds of up to 27 miles per hour. And though they are capable of diving to depths of around 300 meters, they prefer to spend most of their time nearer to the surface, where they feed on small fish and krill, much like baleen whales. Whales, in fact, are part of the reason most members of this lineage adapted to become deep-diving inhabitants of the benthic zone. By separating themselves from seals, whales, and other marine reptiles, they were able to flourish. But of course, their success is due in part to numerous other adaptations. Perhaps most notable is their secondary palate, which completely separates their nasal passage from their oral passage and allows them to swallow food while underwater.
That would be helpful.
They also possess lingual salt glands which excrete excess salt, and extremely dense bones that make diving easier. Now, if you look a bit deeper, we're drawing near to a much larger serpent. Reaching lengths of up to 21 meters and weighing more than 5 tons, the Tiamat is among the largest extant reptiles in the world. Since the times of ancient Mesopotamia, a giant serpent with the same name has been associated with primordial chaos, and when you see the reality for yourself, it's easy to see why. This serpent generally prefers the open ocean, far from the coasts, so
Fuck
sightings are
that.
rare indeed.
Fuck that.
Its size means that it's able to tackle giant cephalopods, medium-sized whales, and even sharks. In short bursts, it can swim just as fast as its smaller cousin, but with the added power of its bulk and a mouthful of curved, serrated teeth. Its coloration allows it to blend in with the darkness of the waters where it hunts, up to 1,500 meters below the surface. Like most sea serpents, the Tiamat has small, elongated lungs, used more to regulate its buoyancy than for storing oxygen. For the latter, they instead rely on a combination of a modified, highly vascularized gular sac rich in blood-filled papillae and cloacal respiration, much like a sea turtle.
So they
Interestingly,
breathe out
though,
their
despite
ass.
its size, the Tiamat is not a true apex predator. Smaller individuals frequently fall prey to great whites, other marine reptiles, and on one occasion, an individual was documented being killed by a pod of orcas, which took turns ramming the animal and tearing off its flippers. But of course, these aren't the only otherworldly creatures in the sea. Sometimes sea serpents will give chase to another near-mythical species, a type of marine primatomorph collectively known as merfolk. You're probably already familiar with the concept of a mermaid. They are, after all, nearly as ubiquitous in human culture as the dragon itself.
Yeah.
Beautiful fish-human hybrids with long flowing hair who seek to lure sailors to their watery doom. But like the dragons we've already glimpsed, the reality of these creatures is far more believable. They're
The ocean's
members of
horrifying.
Primatomorpha, a group that includes terrestrial primates. In the sea, they are represented by Tritanotheria, or more commonly,
Sea
as
troll.
merfolk. At a glance, their lineage can be confusing. Several species seem to be related to manatees or seals, but they're more closely related to colugos. They even retain their ancestors' dentition, though in these marine descendants, teeth are used to filter zooplankton and krill rather than for grooming. Somewhere along the line, this lineage lost their hind limbs, save for minor vestigials in some species, trading them for a fluked tail and a hydrodynamic body plan. Their forelimbs became webbed but lost none of their dexterity, an ability that remains very useful for grasping, manipulating, and even pulling themselves onto dry land. Merfolk are divided into three families. The Selkies, streamlined and agile macro-predators seemingly straight out of Scottish legend.
That is true.
The sea trolls, which almost resemble
Dolphins
elephant
are
seals.
definitely
And the
trollish.
sea monkeys, which generally feature short faces, forward-facing eyes, long forelimbs, and significant sexual dimorphism. This latter family is the one to which the most famous species belongs, the mer. Females of the mer species can reach lengths of 3 meters and are appropriately called mermaids. Males can reach 4 meters and are often called mermen or tritons. Found in temperate, subtropical, and tropical waters worldwide, these mystical creatures live in family pods of 4 to 10 individuals and are most active during the day. Merfolk are also fast, able to swim at speeds up to 24 miles per hour.
I wish.
Still, unfortunately, this agility isn't enough to escape most predators. For protection, merfolk will often travel with larger creatures, like mantas or occasionally pods of dolphins. Interestingly, merfolk aren't only found in the ocean. The Ayara is a species found in freshwater and is native to the Amazon and Orinoco rivers. As a result, it's quite a bit smaller than its oceanic cousins at 1.4 to 2 meters in length. This, combined with its even more articulate forelimbs, allows it to more easily navigate the dense brush often found in these river environments. But while the merfolk are fascinating, for now, we'll return to our survey of the reptilian inhabitants of this strange and fascinating world.
A dragon video,
We've already
right?
discussed the sea serpents, but in these dark waters there is more than one kind of dragon to be found. As you may have noticed, the world of draconology is vast and intricate and connected by lineages stretching back for countless millennia. Building a world
looks
this
like about
complex is
7.
rewarding but difficult to say the least. The more you flesh it out, the more complicated it becomes to keep track of everything. But with World Anvil, even the most complex world building is a breeze. With its robust tools, you can write
This
up
does
detailed
seem like
accounts
a
for each
very,
of your
very
species,
awesome
races,
site.
and regions,
I'm not gonna
and
lie.
use the built-in autolinker function to keep track of how they relate to or descend from one another. Or you can start by importing a detailed map and then link each of your species profiles to their geographic location, making it easy to visualize your creations from a planetary view. Plus, World Anvil is always adding new features. One of the more recent additions is a feature called Chronicles, which takes some of the aspects of one of my favorite features, the Timeline Creation tool, and allows you to connect important events with their location on a map. You can even link articles such as your species profiles to these world events and their locations, which can take your creation from a dull sequence of events to a living, breathing, fully interconnected world. And once you've forged your sci-fi, fantasy, or Spec Evo world, all of your entries are completely searchable. Gone are the days of documents, scattered folders, and tough-to-navigate online threads. With World Anvil, the only thing holding you back is your own imagination. So if you want to try out World Anvil for yourself, just visit worldanvil.com and enter code ThoughtPotato at checkout for a whopping 40% off an annual plan.
Oh my gosh.
So whether you're a novelist, a dungeon
so
master
detailed.
planning your
I
next
love
campaign, or looking to create an alternate Earth populated by mythical creatures, if you've had an idea for a world-building project and just haven't figured out where to start, check out World Anvil today and get started. Links are in the description. At first glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the members of Therasukia look very similar to crocodilians or monitor lizards, and with armored skin and elongated snouts in some species, there is certainly a resemblance. But in fact, the 20 species that make up this lineage are the closest relatives of true dragons, a group we'll be seeking out in due time. But despite their close relation and extraordinary diversity, overall, drakes bear little resemblance to true dragons. The one thing several species do share, however, is the iconic ability to breathe fire. Our journey now takes us to southern Asia, where we just might glimpse our next species roaming in small packs through the forest. The aptly named Oriental Forest Drake is a relatively small member of its family, at 3 to 3.7 meters in length, but it's notable for the flare of color that runs along its sailed back, as well as a unique, nearly opposable digit on its front and back legs, very reminiscent of a primate. An adaptation like this, paired with a broadly omnivorous diet, has made this species very successful, even in a landscape filled with other, larger predators. And when it comes to large, predatory drakes, none are as colossal as the mighty Titan.
Yeah,
Though
I want to ride that guy to
battle. Though you may rarely find this species on land, the Titan drake is actually a marine reptile. It can much more easily
looks like a marine
maneuver its
iguana.
massive 13 to 15 meter, 9-ton tank of a body through the water, where its thick skin and underlying layers of fatty tissue allow the Titan to hunt in colder, deeper regions than its tropical cousins. And with serrated, conical teeth and a bite force of 7 tons, it's a formidable predator on both the land and the sea. Interestingly though, the Titan drake prefers to dine on schools of small fish. An expandable gular sac allows them to suction feed by taking in a large volume of water along with a large volume of fish, and then simply expelling the water out between their teeth, while the serrations keep the fish within its mouth. Of course, as previously mentioned, drakes are capable of breathing fire, a concept which we'll revisit in much more detail very soon. For a marine reptile, though, this ability is practically useless. But with a lineage as diverse as Therasukia, there is much more to discover. Though several species have adapted to an aquatic lifestyle, none are more specialized for life in the water than Thalattoraptoridae, often called the sea drakes. The 6 known species of sea drake are found in tropical and subtropical waters worldwide, and these species are agile and streamlined, far more so than a more basal lineage like the Titan. Like the sea serpents, sea drakes possess dense bones and thick skin, which allows them to dive more easily and regulate their temperature in cold water, respectively. And hollow scales connected to nerve endings allow these drakes to detect vibrations. Of course, unlike their less specialized cousins, sea drakes have lost the useless ability to breathe fire, but they've retained their forked tongues and well-developed legs, the latter of which allows them to remain quite mobile on land. This ability specifically is likely what's allowed the sea drakes to thrive, even amongst stiff competition from whales and other marine reptiles. Though there are many species of sea drake, the most common and well-known is the macara. Found in tropical and subtropical regions of the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, the macara's 4-meter-long silhouette is often glimpsed sailing just below the water's surface. It exhibits many very specialized adaptations that make it the fastest drake by far. With a combination of a hydrodynamic body plan, including a tall nuchal crest that acts like a dorsal fin, webbed flipper-like feet, lightweight bones, and a strong tail, the macara can reach speeds of 40 miles per hour, but only in short bursts.
It would be really cool, like watching this, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Subnautica in a way. I think it'd be really cool to have a game that's like Subnautica, but it's on like a reptilian planet. Or something kind of like, what was the Zerg's home planet called? Where the ancestors of the Zerg were? I would love to see that more explored too. We need more like really high detailed alien planet games. I think that would be really, really cool, but it's a lot of work, it's very expensive, and I don't know. A lot of people just like to work with other, like, established intellectual properties, and they're not really willing to do something new because it's a risk. But we need more of it. We need a lot more of it. Man, there's so much they could do. No Man's Sky. You know, I still want to play No Man's Sky. I've heard that they made it better and fixed a lot of problems that they had. But I haven't really gotten around to it. I think I even have it. Maybe I don't, but I might. I'll have to look into that. Play that sometime.
However, even with these adaptations, the Macara, like many other marine reptiles, isn't safe from predation by orcas and larger drakes. But now, dear traveler, we'll turn our attention from the dark depths of the ocean. The time has come to seek out the most famous and iconic dragons of all, Draconia, or the true dragons. Draconia is the third most diverse clade of Draconomorpha, and it dates back to the late Jurassic. All true dragons possess teeth, have longer tails, shorter wrists, and a different bone structure than some of their closest
They're very
relatives,
cute.
namely the griffins, a lineage we'll be exploring in Part 2. You might think that these dragons are covered in scales, which is a safe assumption, but these scales are actually modified celofibers, very similar to what you'd find on a pangolin. All members are obligate carnivores, with most species burning their prey before consuming it. Indeed, while species in 2 other clades have retained the ability to breathe fire, none have refined it to the level found in true dragons. Nearly all pyrosaurians, which includes drakes, griffins, and true dragons, have an apparatus consisting of a pair of structures associated with fat storage connected to highly derived submandibular glands. Collectively, these organs are referred to as the pyrogenic glands. These unique organs give them the ability to breathe fire, or more accurately, spit fire. And the idea isn't too far-fetched. In reality, all vertebrates are made of and produce large amounts of substances that are highly flammable under the right conditions: methane, hydrogen sulfide, oils, and even body fat. Our bodies also frequently contain inorganic substances like metals and metal salts, which can react violently with air or water. At some point in their lineage, pyrosaurians lost the ability to effectively metabolize nitrogen, and so adapted to storing excess nitrogen in their fat reserves. Eventually, their submandibular glands fused with these lipid-containing fat deposits and became something more complex. All extant pyrosaurians, irrespective of whether they can breathe fire, possess a gene that encodes a mutated salivary enzyme that functions as an oxidase, and this enzyme speeds up oxidation reactions. By accelerating the oxidation of iron sulfide to produce iron oxide and hydrogen sulfide, an immense amount of energy is released as heat. While this is not excessively hot given the very small quantities in which these substances are produced, it is enough to ignite acetone, as well as further destabilize the nitrolipids. The end result is a chemical mixture that undergoes a violently exothermic reaction upon contact with oxygen in the air, and produces fire. But of course...
See, like, the way this is explained, like, it makes sense. And there are a lot of creatures that do, like, you know, they'll spit acid or, like, venom. Or like even just look at like the pistol shrimp. It can create like a sonic heat blast pretty much out of its claw. Like there is some crazy stuff that animals that are alive, that are real, can actually do. So this makes sense. I remember in the dragon mockumentary, they basically were stating like the dragons would eat certain minerals and would search out certain minerals so that they could get chemicals out of it to produce fire. So I thought that was interesting. I don't remember exactly what it was, because it's been years since I've seen it. Maybe like magnesium or something. I don't really remember, but either way, I just think this is interesting. And this does make sense.
To avoid burning themselves, this ability requires some further, very specific adaptations. A modified hyoid apparatus enables pyrosaurians, and especially Draconians, in which this modification is the most advanced, to propel their pyrophoric fuel mixture outward with enough force to clear their mouth and face, and tube-like openings on either side of their mouths keep the flow highly directional. This works so well that a fairly modestly sized dragon, 2 to 3 meters long, can easily spray a target at least 3 meters away, while larger dragons can spray anywhere from 10 to 20 meters away. But there's more. Thanks to the level of precise muscular control they have over their pyrogenic glands, true dragons in particular can use their fire in two different ways: bursts and jets. Bursts are produced when a small amount of fuel is
Bombardier
ejected
beetles.
so fast that it aerosolizes rapidly, spreading as it burns, and creating an intensely hot ball of fire. Interestingly though, burns are not particularly dangerous as they have very little to no force, so whatever damage they do inflict is purely due to heat. This method is far less effective for hunting than it is for defense, and it's the only method of which drakes are capable. Jets, only produced by true dragons thanks to a specialized reaction chamber surrounded by muscle, can shoot much further and do much more damage, especially when a victim is doused in the continuously burning pyrophoric fluid. But other than attack, defense, and sexual displays, why breathe fire at all? Well, for one, in true dragons it allows for a much shorter digestive system than the other predators in their size class. Burning prey prior to feeding not only kills off parasites and removes fur, feathers, and scales, it also makes the meat easier to digest by breaking down tough collagen and tenderizing bone and sinew.
Like
in
humans.
general, Eudraconians' bones are lightweight but not hollow like those of birds. In composition, they're unlike any extant flying animal, but interestingly, they are similar to those of the extinct Hatzegopteryx. Eudraconia is divided into several families and subgenera.
Well, cooked meat, like, tasting better doesn't really matter. It's just, it's a pre-digestion, which basically makes it a lot easier for us to absorb the nutrients inside the food, which is a big part of the reason why the human brain grew to the extent that it did. It requires a significantly less energy to digest cooked food than raw food, which made humans far superior to a lot of other species. Eating cooked food has evolutionarily made us way more efficient, you know? And so I could see it doing the exact same thing for literally anything. If any other animal figured out cooking, maybe 100,000 years after, they would end up being a relatively intelligent creature. Who knows? I mean, it depends on the capacity of the species. Humans are an anomaly. We are very strange, but cool.
And its species are extraordinarily diverse, especially in size. One of the smallest of these is the green dragonet. With a wingspan of just 75 centimeters, it's around the size of a small hawk and found only in the Solomon Islands. But though it may be small, its ability to breathe fire means that it has few predators. To find a slightly larger dragon, we'll be traveling to Eurasia. Here, dominating both the land and sky, is the iconic Eurasian mountain devil. Its wings stretch up to 15 meters or 49 feet, and it stands 5 meters in height, tall enough to look a giraffe in the eye. With a dragon this large, it's no surprise that its prey is also large. Bison, horses, musk oxen, and even juvenile elephantids all have to keep a lookout for the devil's immense shadow. You might not think a dragon of this size would be agile on the ground, but the Eurasian mountain devil is quite adept at running, and even hunts this way when stalking slower prey. Still, they are at their most deadly from the air. If they play it just right, their unfortunate victims will be engulfed in flame without ever having seen it coming. But now, we'll travel to a place you've probably never heard of, and with good reason. Made up of 2 large islands and over 300 smaller ones, Lemuria is a microcontinent that doesn't exist in our world. It's here, in these highly productive aquatic ecosystems, that we'll find our next species, the Lemurian Dracolisk. Like the mountain devil, it's a sizable dragon with a wingspan of around 14 meters. But unlike its primarily highland-dwelling relative, the Lemurian Dracolisk occupies a semi-aquatic niche. Its main prey items are the fish that swim through the abundant rivers and wetlands of Lemuria, and it's developed a few adaptations to match. Despite its preferred diet, ironically, the Lemurian Dracolisk is a poor swimmer. It walks along the riverbed similar to a hippopotamus and ambushes prey by launching itself forward with its powerful forelimbs. Like most true dragons, it burns its prey prior to consumption, though not immediately after capture. Instead, it swallows any prey it encounters, stores it in a throat pouch, and then regurgitates it on land, where it then burns it before eating it. Specialized air sacs allow it to hold its breath underwater for nearly an hour, but of course this stored air makes it difficult to dive. To counter this, the Dracolisk swallows numerous rocks, similar to many diving animals, and then spits them back out when it needs to fly. Interestingly, this species is the longest living of all dragon species. mainly because even into old age, when it and most other dragons become too heavy to fly, the Lemurian Dracolisk remains fully capable of hunting. Indeed, the oldest dragon on record was a Lemurian Dracolisk, which died at the age of 230. Now, dear traveler,
It's a
we'll
long
move our
life.
attention to the open woodlands, wetlands, and mountain forests of Asia. It is here that we'll find the Asiatic serpentine dragon, a member of the Neo-Draconidae, a family that was once very similar to Eudraconids, but has gradually specialized to the forests and woodlands they call home. With ornate features, great adaptability, a wingspan of around 7 meters, and a number of different color morphs, the Asiatic serpentine dragon is truly a sight to behold. Males are notable for having a pair of elongated bony crests, which are extensions of the parietal bone, as well as a beard of fine scathers, similar to that of bearded dragons.
Scathers. I like
Perhaps
that.
most notable, however, is this species' mating ritual. Their breeding season generally coincides with spring or monsoon season, depending on the dragon's home region. During this time, several males will gather together and begin bellowing to attract a mate, emitting a deep, booming call that can be mistaken for thunder. This could be why many Asian cultures associate the dragon with an ability to control the weather. Carried along a similar wind, we will now journey to the skies above Africa, where we will see one of the most impressive dragons so far. It's not necessarily its size, which with a wingspan of 9 to 10 meters isn't exactly small, nor is it its unique hood, which is formed by flaps of skin and used for defensive threat displays, much like a cobra. No, the Denwen's most distinguishing ability is that, among all the dragons, it breathes the hottest fire known to exist.
Ooh.
In fact, to the ancient Egyptians, a dragon with a similar name was thought to produce a fire so powerful, it threatened to immolate the gods themselves.
Damn.
In slightly more measurable terms, for comparison, the fire of most dragons burns at roughly 800 to 1200 degrees Celsius.
That's
By
hot.
contrast, the
Oh my
Denwen
gosh.
produces fire that burns at a scorching 2000 degrees Celsius, comparable to an acetylene blowtorch.
That's like as hot as a planet. Like we were watching space videos earlier today on dangerous planets. It's like that's unfathomably hot. Like that is so hot. I feel like it would disrupt the chemistry of the air around it.
While a direct blast from most dragons would cause instant 3rd or 4th degree burns and char skin and flesh, a direct blast from a Denwen instantly burns straight to the bone. This frighteningly hot fire is due to a high concentration of nitrocarbons in the fuel that this species produces. Unlike regular hydrocarbons such as ordinary lipids or fats, when these pyrophoric substances burn, they produce little to negligible amounts of water vapor, which would reduce the temperature of the flame produced. But while its fire burns hot, the Denwen can't do it for long, lest it run the risk of depleting its chemical stores. As with everything in life, there is a careful balance to be struck. And so, dear traveler, in an effort to maintain a similar balance, we must take an intermission. We'll resume our survey of the fascinating world of Draconology in Part 2, where our journey will lead us to even more fascinating dragons, and maybe just a few of the bizarre creatures that live alongside them. Until next time, thanks for joining me, and remember, you matter.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I like the way he lays out his videos. They are well presented, and I love mockumentary type stuff. I think that they are very entertaining. I think it would be really cool to live in a world that had a bunch of fantasy and whatnot, but until then, I just have movies, video games, and mockumentaries, you know? But we'll watch Part 2 next week when I return. But no, that's cool. I like his channel. Maybe we'll check out some more videos by him. I'm gonna subscribe so that I can go back and look at it later.